So our schools are on the front lines every single day, addressing those food needs, those educational needs, those community needs, that care and that love.
The Catholic education is an advantage for life.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our season finale of Coffee with CEF. I'm Katie Kevorkian. I'm the Associate Director of Development at the Catholic Education Foundation, and I'm really, really excited to see all of you today. So this is our 11th episode that we've put together during this stay-at-home time. We're going to be going on hiatus for the summer, and we'll be back with more Coffee with CEF after school resumes. This morning, I am so excited to introduce guest speakers from the Archdiocese of Los Angeles Department Catholic Schools and two of our schools, St. Francis X Cabrini Elementary and St. Mary's Academy. So if this is your first time joining us for Coffee with CEF, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. The Catholic Education Foundation provides tuition awards to thousands of students every year thanks to the support of our donors. And we hope that this virtual field trip to St. Francis X Cabrini and St. Mary's Academy can provide a glimpse into our Catholic schools, their challenges and successes in the wake of COVID-19. I'm really excited today to welcome back Paul Escala. He is the Senior Director and Superintendent of Catholic Schools, and he is going to share with us some news about the reopening of our Catholic schools. Paul.
Good morning, Katie. Thank you. And thank you to all who are joining us this morning. It is June 24th, and that's significant because it's been 100 days, really, about 101 days since we announced that we would be transitioning our Catholic schools in the Archdiocese to a full distance learning model. And for all of you who experienced this with us or were in the trenches, if you will, it's easy to forget what we were all going through at that moment. We talk a lot about uncertainty today, but my goodness, those moments, those days that felt like weeks, our brains just switched. Our hearts switched over to, we need to get this done. We need to do this now. We need to respond to our families, to our staff, to our communities. And we don't have all the answers, but we know this. We've got to make this transition happen and work for our kids. And while that wasn't a straight line for everyone, many schools experienced challenges along the way. But as a ministry, collectively, we've had some incredible wins for kids and families during this time. A difficult time, an adaptive time. And my prayer is that when we look back on this in years to come, we will all look back on this with, yes, while it was a challenge, and yes, while it was very difficult, we saw the very best of our church. We saw the very best of our families. And after 101 days, I can tell you that we have far more of that good news, despite the challenges, than otherwise. Every Catholic school in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles finished the school year strong. We didn't close a single school. We encouraged every school to keep as many families, especially those of high need, in schools, in spite of economic calamities that families may have faced due to job loss, income loss, and our schools rose to the challenge. Every school in the Archdiocese successfully applied for and received a paycheck protection loan from the Small Business Administration. Collectively, we saw $60 million come in to support the payrolls of the ministers in our schools. This helped keep our schools not only open, but thriving during a very difficult time. And as a result of that effort, we saw students continue to learn. We saw teachers continuing to teach and school leaders continue to lead. We have served now and are continuing to serving over 18,000 meals per day at 40 school sites across the Archdiocese, well over 500,000 meals served. I lost count at this point. I haven't gone back to do the math recently, but this is both indicative of our ministry's mission to serve the poor, but it's also a sobering reality of the food scarcity that's existing in many of our communities. You know, we live in a time right now where while we are experiencing a modern day depression, economic depression, morale depression. Let's be clear about that. It's easy for some to be able to look at this through the lens of the news or the headlines of the newspaper. So we live in a modern day society with technology and on-demand information. But for so many families who have lost a job, who have food scarcity, housing scarcity, all of that translates back down to our children. So our schools are on the front lines every single day, addressing those food needs, those educational needs, those community needs, that care and that love. And we could talk about love and compassion and our gospel teachings in a very, very open, because that's what we do. We are Catholic schools. We are not schools that happen to be Catholic. We are Catholic schools. We are a ministry of the Roman Catholic Church here in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. And I say that with great passion and great sincerity, because right now we are at a time where people are confused. They're scared. They're wondering. They're anxious. Where do I go? What do I do? Will my school open? Am I welcomed at a Catholic school? We're not Catholic. Do I have to be Catholic? Are they going to try to convert me or what? I mean, the list goes on. The bottom line is this: what we have done is we have put faith into action. As Catholics, we don't go out and pound our chests and try to look for credit. And sometimes in the world of a noisy media market these days, that hasn't necessarily served us well. Where we have really demonstrated the great truth to power is at our schools, in our parishes, in our families. We're stepping up. We're seeing that. So we're finishing the school year strong, and this by no means is somehow a victory lap, but it's a moment that we do have to appreciate how very strong we have collectively been during this time. Philanthropy, our philanthropy partners answering to the call to support our schools during this time, whether it be through emergency tuition assistance or offering support to purchase protective personal equipment for the coming school year. The list goes on and on. We are a loving, supportive community, and we're seeing that demonstrated not just on every one of these school sites, but collectively as an archdiocese. As we look towards the coming school year, indeed, last week we announced, based upon public health guidance and modified orders in all 3 counties in the Archdiocese, that we are planning to return to our campuses in the fall. And while school will look different, not just across the board for all children, whether they attend a public or a Catholic school, it will look different in some of our own schools, depending on their campuses, depending on their enrollments, depending on their circumstances. And this is the beauty of our system. We're not a school district. We are inviting and welcoming families back. We're being careful and responsible with how we do that. We're going to leverage all of our technology and all of our love and care to ensure that we can maintain the highest degree of health and safety on campuses. We are ensuring that our schools will have access to protective personal equipment by negotiating with vendors who are reliable to purchase this equipment at wholesale. In fact, our guidance that was sent out to schools yesterday includes exclusive links to websites for schools to purchase directly from vendors. We've also been working with the state of California to ensure that all of our schools receive at least a 30-day supply of no touch thermometers, face shields, face coverings, hand sanitizer. I made this clear in my letter to schools last week, and I'll make it clear today that no school will not be able to open because they cannot afford PPE. The Department of Catholic Schools, Archbishop Gomez wants to ensure that we are in a position to support and help. Whether it's PPE, whether it's philanthropic support to close forecasted budget deficits due to lower enrollment, whatever we need to do and can do to help support schools to adapt to a hybrid environment where maybe schedules are going to look a little different. And some families may not want to return or can't return because of a chronic health condition, either with the student or in the family, but still want a Catholic education. Maneuvering through all of these different scenarios, knowing full well that questions remain. The headlines that we read every day cause questions and concerns and anxieties. This is really happening. Can we safely return to schools? Can we safely return to society? We work very closely with our public health partners, and this announcement really was based upon the data and the science that we have available today. And over the coming weeks and into the months, into the fall, we're going to continue to learn more. And as public health conditions change, we will continue to adapt. We've normed ourselves to that new normal. Things will continue to evolve, and we will continue to adapt. But what we will not do is we will not skirt our obligation in this ministry to ensure that children, whether they're in our presence physically or not, continue to have access to a Catholic education now more than ever. We're putting the final touches on a marketing plan to create more awareness for Catholic schools this summer. That'll be a social media campaign directed at a target demographic that mirrors our own families in our schools. Resources are limited. We're not going to buy a bunch of billboards, and we're not going to be on TV. But we are going to share the good news about our ministry. We're going to target audiences in the social media market that we believe would be receptive to thinking about Catholic schools, particularly now that we have an announcement and many other institutions have not yet announced what their future holds. So there are many, many considerations to make for the coming year. We're going to be working closely with principals and pastors and presidents of all of our schools to walk through all of those questions. We don't have all the answers, and I know that most people don't expect us to, but we have been close to this work. We've been closely working with public health, and we do believe that our schools are well positioned, maybe more than others, because of our scale. Imagine that. Imagine a world where our enrollment scale actually could benefit us in this environment. We're not overcrowded, that in many cases we have space, indoor and outdoor space to accommodate. But most importantly, we have the love and consideration of community in this Catholic faith to steward us and shepherd us through this. And that ultimately we can rely on one another more than many others to ensure that we're looking out for each other as brothers and sisters, that while we have an obligation to our own families, that we are also going to look out for each other's families. And that we're in this together, and that we're really going to be in this together when it comes in the fall. So we are a hopeful and optimistic people. We are proud of what we have accomplished under tremendous challenges, and we are looking forward to this coming school year, no matter what it may pose to us in challenges, but also what it presents to us in opportunity. So I hope that this summation of sort of where we're at today, where we've been and where we're headed, provides you some context and some opportunity to know that all of us in the school ministry are all committed and dedicated to ensuring that our children and those who may not have discovered us yet, and who we hope and pray will be comforted to know that their school communities, while modified, we'll be back. And with that, I hand the baton back to Katie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us this morning. I have a very surprise special guest now who is joining us. Her name is Naomi Byrd. She is a rising sophomore at St. Mary's Academy, and she went to St. Francis X Cabrini for elementary school. Welcome, Naomi. Thank you for being here this morning.
No, thank you for having me.
Now, Naomi, I would love to hear about your experience at St. Francis X Cabrini and St. Mary's Academy, mostly because that means I don't have to introduce the schools for the speakers that are going to talk next. I'll let you do that. So what was it like for you?
At St. Francis, I was there from 3rd grade to 8th grade. I graduated. I was class of 2019. And it was all positive. Like the type of community that they build around us, and like the small classrooms, it just gives us a sense of like having family instead of just going to school. It was just always just a positive, good, happy environment, good experience.
Naomi's also part of the Onward Scholars program, which is one of the many tuition awards that come through the Archdiocese, both CEF and the Department of Catholic Schools. So I was just mentioning that you're part of the Onward Scholars program. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Onward Scholars is a program that covers 75% of my tuition at St. Mary's, and only 12 girls are selected each year to be a part of Onward Scholars. Onward Scholars is a great program. St. Francis introduced that program to me and made it easy for me to transition into going to St. Mary's with that program. They helped me a lot with my essays, and it was just, they were really well in helping me with that. And I really appreciate it. And I feel as if the program helped me transition to St. Mary's because I got to meet some girls before I went into St. Mary's, so I kind of already had a friend group and someone to relate to.
That's great. Now, how was your freshman year? I know it was a lot different than a lot of people's freshman years. So how was it transitioning to high school and then having to do the big transition again to learning at home?
Transitioning to high school, I feel was fairly simple. St. Mary's made that very, very, very easy for us, and it just helps a lot. And the transition to online learning, the same. They made it really easy for us, but the only thing is that, you know, we're not with friends. It's not on like hands-on learning. So of course it was a little sad and it was a little difficult, but St. Mary's made that very easy for us to transition.
So why did you choose St. Mary's for your high school? What about it appealed to you?
The area, because, you know, it's just like in my area, and it's the Catholic background. My family is Catholic, and just over the all girls too. My parents wanted me to stay out of trouble. I just think it's the community and the Catholic faith that my family could relate to and that I could relate to that definitely drew us towards that. Of course, there are many other schools, but, you know, St. Mary's is just in the heart of Inglewood, and it's just very well known, and it's a good school.
That's wonderful. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but St. Mary's has a career pathway program. Do you know, do you have an idea of what you'd like to do for the career pathway program?
Yes, I was in health careers last year, and this year I want to try the arts program. Just so I like how they give you the chance to go to different career programs, so you can really know before you go to college what you want to do. So that's already set. So,
and what do you think you're going to want to do when you go to college?
I'm not sure, really.
Okay.
Right now, I jump around so much in my interests, but right now I'm interested in sociology, and I'm also interested in filming, so I don't know how that would combine. Yeah, those are my interests right now.
Well, we're really excited to see how that turns out, and I hope that you can give us an update in a couple of years about which career pathway you chose and how you're doing at St. Mary's. So thank you so much for being with us this morning, Naomi. Naomi is part of a summer program that you have to get back to, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you do? What program are you doing this summer?
It's called CYTT with USC. It's debate program, but we're unable to really debate now. So right now we're just working on communication skills and discussing current events and things like that.
Well, that's great. Well, best of luck to you, Naomi. Have a wonderful summer. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye, Naomi. Well, that was very exciting to have a little drop-in guest this morning. Kris Anderson is the vice principal of St. Mary's Academy. It's a women's high school in Inglewood. In addition to receiving a master's degree in Catholic school administration from Loyola Marymount University, Kris completed his doctoral studies at LMU in educational leadership for social justice. A lifelong learner, Kris is currently reading Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek, while his favorite read is Heroic Leadership by Chris Looney. We also have with us today Mrs. Carmen Hart from St. Francis X Cabrini Elementary School, which was one of the 8 Dominican Sisters Vision of Hope schools that we learned about last week. Carmen has been a principal for 23 years, 11 of those years at St. Francis X Cabrini. She earned a Master of Arts in Education at the University of the East in Manila, Philippines, and certificates from the University of San Francisco and Loyola Marymount University. She was named Outstanding Teacher of the Year in 2003 by the Wilmington Coordinating Council and was recognized in Who's Who among American teachers in 1996 and 1997. Also from Cabrini is Maggie Byrne, an attorney and fundraiser who lives in Manhattan Beach with her husband and 4 children. They're members of American Martyrs Church and School. And Maggie has sat on the board of the Down Syndrome Association of Los Angeles and is an advisory board member of the National Catholic Board of Full Inclusion and has been fundraising for the last 19 years. She was introduced to St. Francis X Cabrini by her friend Lynne Hook, who is also here this morning. Lynne is an attorney who has been advising and defending employers in employment law matters for 25 years. She also sits on several nonprofit boards, including the Dan Murphy Foundation, Notre Dame Academy of Los Angeles, and of course, St. Francis X Cabrini. We are eternally grateful to Lynne for running the LA Marathon on the CEF racing team and raising funds for tuition award. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. My first question, of course, to you is, what are you drinking this morning and what's in your cup? Kris, what have you got for us?
Hello, everyone. This morning I have some pomegranate herbal tea from Arbonne, and I'm drinking out of my LMU mug.
Sounds delicious. Carmen.
I'm drinking the Orinoco Mocha Java blend, and I'm drinking on my favorite cup, and it's a good tasting, wonderful mocha blend.
That sounds delicious. Maggie.
Good morning, everyone. I am drinking out of my mug that my son Johnny gave to me on his last travel, and I'm drinking coffee.
Thank you, Maggie. And Lynne.
I'm drinking cappuccino. We used to live in Switzerland, so we have a real coffee maker. So every morning in Switzerland, you can't get away with an American coffee maker. So every morning I make a cappuccino, and I have a very boring plain white mug, but it's simplicity, I guess, is what I'm going for. So
it's what's inside the mug that counts, right, Lynne? Thanks so much, guys, for coming. Now, I've got some other questions for you this morning. So it's always so exciting to speak with students who are so determined to succeed, and we just saw that with Naomi. And Carmen, I understand that you start to plant the seeds for Catholic high school, even for the youngest students. Can you tell us about that?
I think I would have to give credit to the parents as well, because once the parents step into St. Francis Cabrini, they already have that seed planted in them, in the family. St. Francis Cabrini is kind of a soil that we water, nurture with our values, those who come in our school, and Christ is the center. And that comes in where the Dominican charisms relates in our culture with truth, prayer, study, service, and community. And I have to mention this because this is really the baseline, encouraging our children to go on to higher Catholic schools. So the Catholic education is an advantage for life. And with the community service of a high school, when they come in, the students from St. Mary's, from Marymount High School, from Notre Dame, from Bishop Conati, from Bourbon Bay, from Loyola High School, they are actually the fertilizers that makes it easier for me to speak to our little ones with regards to Catholic education. It's a kind of, it's a teamwork. It's not only one could do it, but it's a teamwork between elementary school and then as well as high school, and then teachers and administrations and everyone that sets in.
Kris, you reach out at St. Mary's Academy to potential students. What are you doing there to increase enrollment and increase retention?
Well, thank you for sharing that question with me. And I also want to, before I go into really this answer, just again, thank CEF. Just so some context that everyone will know, a little more than 57% of our students receive funding from CEF at St. Mary's Academy. It is, if it is not our largest yearly donor, it is right up there. So our school would not truly be able to provide the rich resources to our students without the support of CEF. So I just want to say thank you to CEF and everyone who supports CEF right off the start. But to return to your question about how do we engage prospective families and students, I'd like to dovetail exactly off of what Carmen just said. We try to tell this story that it's not just St. Mary's Academy is going to support your daughter to get to this place. It's St. Francis Cabrini plus St. Mary's Academy. It's that full, comprehensive, holistic Catholic education that we can partner together to ultimately provide, in our case being an all women's school, provide that rich Catholic education that will ultimately put our students on the path to success that they're going to choose, much in the same way like Naomi. I'm so proud of her that she was able to share with everyone this morning. I think it's also important when we're trying to reach out to prospective students. You can have the greatest marketing campaign in the world and the most colorful banners, but at the end of the day, the most important way, the easiest and most effective way to attract prospective families is word of mouth, and word of mouth from happy parents and happy students. And so we've really tried to work on supporting our parent ambassadors, our parents as ambassadors of our school, so that when they are going to their church or they're going to the supermarket or in their places of employment, they can really feel confident that I want my child's having such a great experience at St. Francis Cabrini or at St. Mary's Academy. I want that for your child as well. Maybe you should think about that. I think beyond anything, that is the most successful way to reach prospective students. Beyond that, it's also offering strong programming. You had asked Naomi a little bit about our career path programs. Just to really quickly recap, we have 3: health, careers, engineering, and arts. Really being able to provide strong programming in those areas that maybe other schools might not be able to provide. It gives us the opportunity to increase what we call the value proposition of our school, because yes, we are a tuition-based school. So what separates your school that I'm going to pay for my student to attend there versus this one? And then finally, I would just say, again, obviously you do need to do marketing. And so we've tried to strategize with social media, with email blasts. We do a lot of the same events that other schools do, such as we have Bell for a Day or Shadow Days at our schools. And that's an opportunity to get students on campus. St. Mary's Academy is truly a beautiful place. You don't really know how much until you actually step on foot on campus. And once you're here, you know it and you feel it and you see it. And so when families and students are given that opportunity to see our school, see what a day at St. Mary's Academy looks like, it's a special thing for everyone.
I have to second that. I've been to St. Mary's Academy, and it is an absolutely beautiful place. It is a really impressive space. The students are really impressive, and I would encourage anybody who can make a field trip over there. Traveling and visiting is safe again, that you should go and take a look at St. Mary's, because it is a beautiful, beautiful place. Speaking of restrictions and COVID-19, Carmen and Kris, what is your enrollment for next year, and how has it been impacted by COVID-19?
As of now, I have registered 200 number of the children that we have. Yes, COVID-19 impacted their enrollment just because parents really asking about what is the dynamics of our instructions. And I do affirm to them and confirm them that yes, we're going to make use of maybe a hybrid, just because we really don't want And when I survey some parents, they don't like really the distance learning. So we said, just because we have 200 number of students, we cannot accommodate 20 students in one classroom. We need to have at least 10 or 15 students and then designate their distance, social distancing. So my leadership team and I really did had a meeting, and we did discuss about the hybrid. We're going to have the in-person and as well as the distance learning. The only impact is that some parents are saying, I'm not sure if I'm going to have this job. I'm still unemployed. And then, of course, the dynamics of the instructions. I think that's the only impact that we did. And plus, also, they thought that we are not enrolling yet just because we are our school is under construction. So they called the office and said, are you open, Mrs. Hart? I said, yes, we're open, come on in. We entertained them with all the covers in our tables and all the covers in our front office. So yes, that's the primary reason I think that the COVID-19 impacted our enrollment.
And Kris, is your experience been similar at St. Mary's Academy?
You know, our current number of registered students going into next school year is about 20% lower than we ended the school year with, and that almost exclusively has to do with, you know, families just being economically uncertain. Paul shared, you know, again, we're living in a time of, you know, very a lot of people are nervous about their economic situation, and so a lot of families, I think, are struggling to be able to make that decision for their family of can I financially support my daughter going to St. Mary's Academy. So yes, we are down about 20%, but with that, we actually have more incoming freshman registrations than we did at this time last year. So some of those new strategies that we had talked about earlier to attract prospective families, even in spite of all of the things that are going on, it did seem to work. And, you know, you kind of think, you know, if the world was quote unquote normal right now, what would that number have been? No, definitely the biggest impact that we've had has been the number of registrations for next year, much in the same thing that Carmen shared. We're in the final stages of trying to finalize what is a hybrid model of learning going to look like at St. Mary's Academy. And I think just in general, the silver lining in all this is we've started to think about what other ways can we do things to make them work, and not just work, but be incredibly effective for our students. And I think more often than not, you put a group of educators in a room to solve a problem, and they're going to solve it.
Thank you. So last week we learned about Vision of Hope, and as I said before, St. Francis X Cabrini is a Dominican Sisters Vision of Hope school, and they talked a little bit about their development boards. So I would love to hear from Maggie and Lynne about the development board and how does the work of the development board impact the school? Maggie or Lynne?
A few years ago, I was introduced to St. Francis Cabrini through a teacher at American Martyrs, and it led to a lunch with now Bishop O'Connell, who encouraged a few of us from American Martyrs to get more integrally involved to support St. Francis. And we visited and we got our kids involved in some projects. And so a few of us started on the board, and we have a couple of board members on the call, Peggy Grant and Marty Verdanovich. And so we've been working together as a group, and we're up to maybe 9 board members. It's a really strong team, and we have some amazing things going on. And Carmen is so easy to work with, and runs such a wonderful school that we all just felt very called to what we do. About a little over a year ago, Maggie fortunately said yes and agreed to come on as the development director. And so much has happened in the last 16 months. It's unbelievable. The school looks completely different than it did 6 months ago, and I'll let Maggie speak to some of the exciting things going on.
Thanks, Lynne. Well, and you heard last week that Vision of Hope has this model for the schools, which is so effective, because what you have is a development director and a development board which sees the specific strengths of each school and the specific needs. And so it allows for quick action and teamwork to really address them, and, you know, to offer our students and families really what they need quickly. You know, it's it's a great process. So the development board it's not only financial in that they bring in their contacts, but they bring in their expertise. So as we all know, Mrs. Hart, as principal of an inner city Catholic schools, has so many things to address every day because there's no cushion in the staff there, whether it's a child who, fell down, or, there's a parent needs to talk, or there's a teacher that needs help. So we have, we're able to the board's able to help with that. And it brings in, and the other thing is it really gets the message out to other people about our inner city schools. It's easy, to be in our parish and school, but when you have people, promoting it and raising awareness in all communities in Los Angeles, it's great. It's the marketing piece.
So over the course of the last 11 weeks, we've spoke to several pastors, administrators, educators about the transition to distance learning. And while I in no way mean to downplay any of the challenges faced by our educators, students, and families, I do want to talk about some of the discoveries and innovations that happened along the way. So how is this experiment, the experiment that we were forced into in blended learning, improve the way that your teachers teach and your students learn? Kris, I'd love to hear from you first.
What I can say unequivocally is I've never been more proud to be a part of a particular group of educators and the teachers that I work with daily at St. Mary's Academy. March 13th was our last day of in-person school. And on March 16th, we were completely transitioned to a distance learning platform where all of our students were online. Instruction was happening, and it wasn't just happening, it was of the highest quality. So to say that the work of our teachers at St. Mary's Academy is commendable would be an understatement. It was just incredible. And of course, there were mistakes along the way. We tried new things, some of them failed. But at the end, new platforms were introduced. New pedagogy was taken on by teachers, teachers that just in the past might not have ever thought to create a Google site for their classroom to completely make it functional for their students to interact with each other. Ultimately creating spaces for students to take ownership of their own learning, which is what we want them to be able to do anyway. And so in a lot of ways, teachers were forced into finding ways to guide their students through that experience. I think the greatest example of this were our final exams. Obviously, final exams, even in a traditional school setting, in the secondary setting, it's kind of a stressful time for students, to say that. And so we tried to take the approach of, are we giving final exams, or are we providing epic finales to these classes? You think, final exam being the completion, the end of a course, whereas we want to inspire our students to continue the learning. Don't just stop because you took your final test. So just some examples. In our sophomore honors world literature class, the students collaborated together to create this beautiful 5-page essay about the novel Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. In our one of our engineering classes that's in our engineering pathway, students were charged with the task of finding a regular everyday household product and improve it, and had to go into the design specifics of how to do that. Just one more story in our Spanish 1 class. Instead of taking a traditional final exam, their epic finale was they wrote a storybook, and then using Flipgrid, they uploaded themselves reading the book to their classmates in the target language, of course. And so I think ultimately the biggest takeaway is students were given the opportunity to demonstrate what they've mastered, instead of be in this place where sometimes what final exams create is this high pressure situation where students are being penalized for a grade, whereas they're able to demonstrate all that they did learn. The greatest takeaway for our teachers moving forward, when we are eventually able to get to a more traditional learning environment, to continue practices like that.
Thank you, Kris. Carmen, how How have the last few months influenced or improved the way
Yeah.
your teachers are educating the students?
Yeah, I think we invested on technology and the teachers really embrace it. So during that distance learning, we translated within 2 days. And I think I can ditto Kris with regards to that. The teachers, March 16, we had our meeting, and then the March 17 is all translated into remote learning. We are sure that it's really, the lessons are really delivered right and delivered successfully. When we talk about blended learning, we actually, it's versus again technology-rich instructions. And in blended learning that the teachers are using it in the classroom, it optimizes the individual student to really work to their potential. And it is a really true blend of instructions, and students were given a chance to control over where, what, and how they are going to work on it. And then there's a leverage of an opportunity for them to personalize these things. Just like, for example, again, the junior high especially, they had their project. This is a science project that they have. So they did it with their own time, with their own control of hours and works that they have, and they presented it. Fourth graders, they did make crowning. And it's just something that children could incorporate, and they were able to do it within their expertise in their own field. So it's actually a classroom wherein it provides integration of learning and experience, and we don't use technology to support the traditional way of instructions. We go beyond that.
Thank you, Carmen. I have another question for Maggie. Even with a tight budget, you give out generous financial aid funding to your students to make sure Catholic education is possible for every family who wants to go to St. Francis X Cabrini, which is wonderful. But at the same time, you are expanding with new programs to meet your students' needs and some renovations. Maggie, can you tell us about the changes that are going on?
We have such a wonderful community at St. It's an honor to work at Cabrini with the teachers and the dedication, the Dominican Sisters and Vision of Hope and our development board. So it's a wonderful to be there. And yes, we have students and families who receive financial aid, and thank you so much to Catholic Education Fund for everything you do for them, and Doheny. We're so grateful to Vision of Hope for all of their support. And I just want to take off what I said before with the development board. We're able to really branch out and talk and raise awareness. One of our, obviously, we were so grateful to receive a Shea Family Charity grant to renovate our school. And our students actually we've been asking for air conditioning, and it was just a no, 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 you'll never get it. Our students did a science lab where they closed the door and they registered how hot it was getting in the classroom and asked me to submit that as part of the grant, which I did. And anyway, I don't know why we were so lucky to receive the grant, but our facilities were in dire need of repair, from everything from electricity to paint. And so we are so thankful to Shea for that. And interesting note, Mrs. Shea was actually one of the first members of the advisory council for Vision of Hope and one of our first development board members. So we do have a tie there. And then Vision of Hope gave us an impact grant, which was for programming. And so this is part of the ability to see a problem and get it solved, but we needed reading intervention for our students. So Marty Radonovich, who's on our board, is a reading interventionist, and she had been volunteering. We used part of that money to start a true program. and with the data that we received from that short time she was able to do it, we were able to write another grant to another donor, are able to continue our reading intervention program next year. The goal is for our students not to struggle with reading, but to love it, enjoy it, and just, excel in all their subjects. We're also able to start a student, we got a grant for a garden and music. Our board is also working on starting a school board. And then there's also some creativity. One of our board members, Teresa Carlson, started the Carlson Family Scholarship because she saw a need that we have families with 3 or 4 children, and sometimes the family might be able to bridge the gap and have 2 children there, but they just can't afford that 3rd child. So those funds are for that, to allow new siblings and students to come and help them for a year. We also have a donor who we just let them know that we're worried about enrollment, and she is offering scholarships to bridge that gap, because now with the COVID, that bridge is even larger for our families who want to send their children to Catholic schools, and with their job loss, it's an even larger challenge. So I think it's just, and then we have these wonderful, Doheny and St. Sebastian Sports. So anyway, I think it's innovation, it's working together, it's just really, I think many of us have experienced Catholic education ourselves, and we understand what a difference it made in our lives, the faith, the social aspect, the academics, and I know personally it's made me a lot of who I am. So I feel honored to be part of it.
Thank you, Maggie. So I'm hearing from you, and I've heard from so many people, and we've all experienced this, that COVID-19 brought many, many unexpected challenges and difficulties this year. And it's just so amazing to me to see that you were able to complete the project with the renovations and improve these programs at your schools. But I want to ask, what is it that you need right now, and what can we as a community, and if we have colleagues that are looking, and family members who are looking to help, what can we do for you right now? Lynn, I would love if you could answer this question.
Well, there's always funding needs, obviously. And I think, all Los Angelinos have to step up and realize that those of us who believe in Catholic education need to put our money where our mouth is. And I really believe that this is the time to step up and promote Catholic education throughout the city. Whether you donate to Catholic Education Foundation or Vision of Hope, or whatever your favorite organization is that will funnel that money appropriately, or whether you just want to support the school that you attended. I just think now is the time to step up and realize that all the dissatisfaction brewing throughout our city, much of this has to do with the fact that we need good education systems, and we need students to be strong and ready for career paths that will allow them to have a productive and contributing life to society. So I would just say, everybody has to really either join a development board of a struggling inner city Catholic school, or if you don't have the money to donate, that's fine. There's other ways to get involved, but all Los Angelinos who believe in Catholic education need to step up.
Thank you. And Kris, can you tell us about some of the needs at St. Mary's Academy now?
So at St. Mary's Academy, our biggest need at our school, approximately 96% of our students are on financial assistance, and that was prior to COVID-19. And so the need for tuition assistance has only been furthered. And so right now, to specifically help St. Mary's Academy, one of the easiest things that someone can do is to go to our website, smabells.org, click on Support SMA, and donate to either our COVID-19 relief fund or just our general tuition assistance funds.
You can see here I have the websites up for smabells.org and sfxcabrini.org, and you can visit those sites to donate to the schools, learn more about the schools, and get in contact with Kris or Carmen or someone else at the schools if you would like to learn more and learn about being involved. These are to Lynne, Carmen, Maggie, Kris, and yes, extend our thanks to Naomi. Thank you so much. And Paul, thank you so much for joining us. We are so glad to have you. You were at our very first Coffee with CEF, and so it was really wonderful to have you again to report on our season finale. It is a real joy for me every week to get to see all of you and to participate in this event. So I look forward to future Coffee with CEF. And as always, I want to thank you all, everybody who came, for your support, for your presence, for being with us and walking beside us, especially during this time. Our Catholic school principals and pastors are working hard to reach out to families to make sure that our Catholic schools are able to offer a Catholic education to everyone who wants to enroll. And it's always the goal that no one is turned away for lack of funds, though it is increasingly difficult to offer the amount of financial aid that is needed, especially now that families are facing extreme hardships with job loss, illnesses. If you can give right now, you can visit our website at cefdn.org. 100% of your donations to the Catholic Education Foundation will support tuition awards for the neediest students in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. You can also give, of course, to St. Francis X Cabrini or St. Mary's Academy by visiting their website. And they have tuition assistance funds and COVID-19 funds that you can donate to online. So thank you again for coming. It is a pleasure to have been able to see you every week. We plan to be back next fall with more Coffee with CEF. So have a lovely summer, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.